I waited 5 years for this game. Silksong really needs no introduction as it was the most anticipated game ever. So let's just start with the combat. It is really good. It feels great and just has a flow the first game just didn't. The diagonal pogo takes a lot of time to get used to, but adds a lot to the game once you are. Tools are versatile and fun to use. Their best use case will always be against flying enemies, because trying to beat them in any other way takes too long and is too frustrating. And the new healing system is easily the best improvement from Hollow Knight. Being able to heal 3 max at once very quickly makes the combat feel more intense and much faster paced. But I do have a few problems with binding. First off, the most important thing about it is that you can do it mid-air. That just isn't taught by the game. My 2 friends only figured that out when I told them. And I only knew of it because I watched the trailers. But whatever, that's pretty minor. This next thing isn't though. Spells are basically useless in any difficult fights, because the way spells work in this game is by using silk, which you gain from striking enemies. That is also the same way you heal in this game. It takes 8 silk to bind and 4 silk to cast a spell. The problem with spells being half a heal is that you reach near death in Silksong very quickly and often, with nearly everything doing 2 masks of damage. Even when you are at full silk and max health, it still feels like an unwise decision to cast a spell, because you might need a heal in just a few seconds, so using spells only seems viable when you know the fight ahead will be easy, and you know you won't take that much damage. Which is a shame, because I find spells really fun to use in both games. Smooth transition to the next top, the movement. The sprint jump's delay feels very clunky and unsatisfying to use, but the fact it's just a constant sprint is just a really nice quality of life change. Each crest having a different pogo throws me off, except for the Wanderer's crest. But overall it's great. I would go as far to say that it's somewhat better than Hollow Knight, but movement would mean nothing in a game like this without exploration. It's nearly as good as the previous game. It does have 2 big flaws though. This game hates you. It just has a lot of gotcha moments. Whenever there is a fall, there will be some kind of floor hazard at the bottom of it. Multiple trapped or non-functioning benches. The charm that negates the maggot water effect is at the end of the final area that even has maggot water. Enemies attacking you that you had no way of knowing that were there. A boss having a death attack that has a very small indicator for it. And all that combined with long runbacks for basically everything, since enemies are a legitimate threat now, means you'll be dying a lot more during exploration. Leads to an exhausting and frustrating exploration experience. It got so bad during Act 3 that I just straight up didn't want to explore new areas, because all I expected from new content was just more frustration. For the first 10 to 20 hours it isn't that bad. But eventually I did start enjoying the game again after 85 hours of playtime. On my second playthrough it got a lot more fun because I knew about most of the bullshit that the game was going to throw at me, so it got a lot less annoying to play. Anyways, let's talk about the second big flaw, and that is the lack of rewards for exploring. Let's take Hunter's March for example. The reward for beating the big ant card is 14 shards. Sure, you could say the access to the area is the reward, but in the first game, the Elder Balder who sits at the entrance of Green Path, whose only purpose is to block your path, still dropped money. This next arena in this area also gives you nothing except access to further into the area. The enemies don't even drop shards or rosaries in this arena. What is the deal with that? Enemies just not dropping anything. Having a patch where enemies in arenas actually give money would solve the early game money problem. I don't even get why they changed that from the first game. The lack of these good rewards for exploration culminates into my problems with the currency system. Shards are used to replenish tools and are dropped by every enemy, and they suck ass. At the start of the game, you get way too many of them, because you only have one tool that isn't even that good. But later on, they become way too scarce if you don't grind for them, because enemies only drop like 3 to 7 shards each. And the shard rewards for exploration are worthless. You either find deposits of 14 shards, and most of them fall into the spike so you don't even get enough for a single tool use, or you get a shard pack which gives you 80 shards, which is enough shards to fully replenish your tools a singular time. And I'm just talking about regular gameplay. Lud save you if you are stuck on a boss fight and dare to use one of the game's core mechanics, because after every death all the tools you used need to be replenished and use your shards every time. So if you are stuck on a boss for more than like 5 attempts and run out of shards, you are left with 2 options. Either be at a massive disadvantage with no tools, or completely stop attempting the boss fight and go grind enemies. Both options suck. This is the reason I ended up not using tools during boss fights almost entirely, so I wouldn't have to deal with the shard system. The most backwards thing about shards is that the best way to farm for them is to grind for rosaries, so you could buy shard packs at a shop. Now, let's talk about the rosaries. They are the currency that is used to trade with vendors and to pay for souls. Rosaries are in short supply throughout the entire game. The exploration before you free Belheart gives you barely any rosaries, but when you do, the relics give you a reasonable amount. A majority of the enemies don't even drop money, and the ones that do drop barely anything. Now I get only civilized bugs dropping rosaries is a lore thing, but Hollow Knight had every enemy drop money and that didn't ruin the game. At the start of the game, the scarcity of rosaries was understandable, as it was to encourage you to do the quests in this game, even though like a third of them are repetitive and boring fetch quests. But later on, most of the quests don't even give you money anymore, and half of them are just asking for yours instead. All that combined with everything in shops costing 300 to 1000 rosaries in the latter half of the game, leads to the only viable way of getting money is grinding enemies, which first off is insane that you need to grind money for just the regular shop items, because exploring and defeating bosses gives you fuck all. And secondly, the grinding is really boring. Let's take a look at Hollow Knight. The only time you need to actively grind for money was for making Fragile Charms unbreakable, which was a completely unnecessary upgrade that didn't even give a percentage, but if you really needed them, you didn't grind the same 2 enemies over and over again. Instead, you did a really fun enemy gauntlet which rewarded you with a few thousand geo each time. Are you finding this background footage boring and repetitive? Imagine how I felt needing to do this on my first playthrough for hours. It doesn't help that actually just made grinding money harder and less convenient. Conclusion. Overall, Silksong is fine. The highlights of the game for me are the combat, Phantom, replaying it, difficult platforming sections like Mount Fay and Cogwork Core. But it is weighed down by everything being too frustrating and tedious. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say.